Night in the box. Hey, is the building still there, Jerry? Do you know?
I'm not sure. The camping place is still there.
I think we should all drive down there, all right? Right after.
I think it's still there. I think they just heated up the.
You got one of the big ones.
Okay, so we're going to do two things right away. First thing up, I would like to show the behind-the-scenes footage that Mr. Steve Siegel filmed while we were in Taiwan. And so I think Isaiah has it ready to go. I think it's a feed from YouTube. Let's do that.
How is that? Oh, nice.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
You're so big. It's like going to lunch on Hollywood Boulevard. Jill would say, you know, the homeless people then would say, you know, they go out and they go come on, Kurt, come on. Wait, where's that guy?
Okay, that's enough.
Blue.
Blue.
Sparky.
That's the kind of stuff Randy would get. What's he doing? What's that one?
How are you doing now?
Making a movie.
Your movie.
I've never seen a good like so that way first.
I want to go back. I want to go back to Hollywood.
See, I have 3 scenes here. And you have to be done like tomorrow. Show you a good shot. There. Isn't that beautiful? That's pretty.
Nice format.
Fire trap.
Bye.
The donut.
Coffee.
I do need coffee.
Wow,
Who's right now?
Yeah, he finished his story. This is gonna work.
Yes.
For this full blast storm here, that'll be a neat sound cut.
A long pan to the compactor down here in this corner. It goes crunch. I mean, Joe's talking, he doesn't even want to do this. He doesn't even think this is dramatic enough. He wants to do is like a long pan. And then way down here would be the compactor.
Like a helicopter shot. Everything's over the helicopter.
Yeah.
This is fine for like the end, but at the very beginning we have a whole lot, and real quick dies out.
有那个5到6个之间，很多东西这样全部进来，然后空气这样全部进来。
它应该是很快的，很多镜头画面，然后再慢慢消。
Yes, they're just like butterflies. Yeah, you're going to have to make that up. Okay? Make up a pattern for them.
Yeah, there's also a shot just before this, well, just after this. They look back here towards us and they say, Master Shaman, look, and Blanky points off in this direction. And we cut to their point of view looking back at him going away from us. So it's going to have to be, we just threw out a master plan for the whole thing. Just drop in crap and read this and talk about it. Cut it in the picture. Sorry.
Holy Mother American! What were you thinking? You might have broken my phone! Volunteering about, okay? A national holiday. And honor those 5 amazing prizes we're volunteering about. So look up the office, take down the top, and open that raffle seat. That's when the Coney Island is a party goober.
What? Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Wait a minute.
These lines,
Yeah?
these are closer together. Look, look at this. Look, I'll have to shrink this down.
Yeah? Okay.
Okay, so much for that.
These carts are pulled up for lunch every day.
Number 5. That count? This is home movies.
Is anybody shooting coaster?
Yeah.
He would only draw between the pages. They're jammed in there.
That's what you call it?
It's total fire trap. I had only heard about Xeroxing cells. I had never seen anybody do it. I'd never seen a video of it. So I had to include that.
You were right to do it.
Straight.
Oh, it's
Also has all the straight toner.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to like be static in it, or otherwise it'd stick to the cell. And then what? You gotta register.
Yeah,
You gotta make
okay.
it line up. Wow.
Hello, Monica. This is the last scene.
Oh, I did the layout for this.
get the
I have
aerial?
that painting rolled up.
Do you?
I haven't framed it yet. It's three times as long as that one.
Was it the inch shot?
This is okay. This is okay. Okay. This is NG for jiggles again. And then the rest, this is a 530.
Chuck's list.
Flashing. Okay.
Full of stickers.
Also, Jerry wants to check the time in, so that should go to Jerry. Watch the moon line. Okay. Ooh.
Ooh?
Wow. So
Is that good?
Yeah.
Look at those fireflies.
There they are.
Rees.
James Wan,
It's eaten.
president of Cuckoo's Nest. And Sandy?
Chairman.
Chairman.
Yeah.
Because of
Get it
him,
right.
we make this film.
All right, thank you, Steve. Steve, one of the challenges, many challenges you were doing was the pullback from the window when Blanky's looking outside and hopes it's the master coming back, and then there's that long pullback. That, nowadays that would be a simple thing, but back then, in 86, 85, 86, that was a tough one, and you took on the challenge of doing match dissolves all the way back through all those different backgrounds. What were there, 5 backgrounds?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Yeah.
But it gave that emotional thing of the close-up of the character all the way back to the distant shot where he's left alone, and that I remember you wanted to make that better. I was ready to kind of accept sort of jump cuts or some kind of obvious dissolve, and you said if we do this right, we can match dissolve it and make it look better. So I appreciated that.
Well, what I remember is it was a series of unmatched dissolves, and I
Yes.
said, wouldn't it be better as one long pullback? And you
Yeah.
said that's what I always wanted.
Yeah.
But they said that you couldn't. That was impossible. And I said, well, let me give it a try.
Yep.
I mean, Chuck gave me a really hard time though, because it took about 4 months.
Yes.
I mean, I was doing a lot of other stuff at the same time, but I had a spare hour or something. I
Yes.
would come back to a max dissolve, and it was like rotoscope.
Yep.
I was just projecting the light and lining it up by
Yep.
eye.
Yep.
Something. I guess we saw it the same way, at least. But I did it once, and then you said, "Oh no, that's not." You wanted like to have a little motion, a little rolling motion to it,
Right.
like easing, and I kind of just pulled straight back, so I had to do it over again.
Right, and I think I heard Kevin saying that I wasn't satisfied with the toaster throwing itself in the gears, that I wanted a bigger. I had personally storyboarded that section where it did the big leap to to grind in the gears, and I had pictured like a much longer transition. So I knew it was going to be arduous for people, but I felt like we needed that. And I
it
think
all paid off.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the movie.
And Brian, I think we were seeing some of Ken O'Connor's color stylings along the way there. Brian.
That was a really fortunate turn of events, and another one of the sort of magical things that happened on the movie is that I was trying to get somebody to paint color versions of the story, so that when we went to Taiwan, we would have all those little color thumbnails. And I couldn't find anyone in town to do it, and so then I just had this wacky idea of asking Ken O'Connor, who's like this brilliant Disney, genius legend, and was my teacher. And I asked him, well, would you be willing to pitch in and do some color sketches for us, and he said, "Oh, I would be delighted." And he was all excited about it, and he color sketched the whole film.
Wow. Yeah, we went out and met him in his big workshop at home, his garage studio. And you would make reduced versions of some of your layouts,
and they were literally color thumbnails because they were about that big. A lot of those,
2x3.
Yeah.
And you could pin them up and follow the emotional flow of the entire movie, and it gave you anchors for the background painting all the way through.
Wow. And the other really wonderful thing about him, and a real tribute to just how professional this man was, is I was, this young kid student, thrown into the frying pan of being an art director for the first time, and here was this legend, and he's saying, well, what would you like here for this scene or that scene, and he was letting me lead, which for me was just like overwhelming. And then what he would also do was, as he got these layouts, if layouts were egregiously like bad, he would relay them out, and he would go, I was thinking maybe we should do this something a little more. And I was like, oh, he fixed that.
Tweak the perspective a little bit here.
Yeah. So that was a really wonderful contribution to the movie. Yeah.
And Brian, I always, I've told you this before, but I thought it was such a bold illustration of a principle, your whole involvement with the film, is that it doesn't cost more to have good taste.
Yeah.
They would sit there and paint colors on a cell, and it would cost a certain amount for that cell to get painted. They could either paint crappy colors or really good colors, which you chose before they painted them. And the film just looked more expensive, and it looked more rich because of your taste.
Well, and also the thing that people forget, and I see this in the industry a lot now, is that they put so much detail and everything's so clean and slick and all that, and there's lots of artists that are really good at that. Ken's paintings were not slick, but all the values were there, all the colors were there. You could take that, and then when you paint the real background, all the information you need is already there. You don't need all that detail there, And I think for our industry, that's gotten kind of lost because everybody, they want to see making of book art, and they want to see the wall art and all that kind of stuff.
Boy, did we not have time to do that.
And no, we didn't, but because of Ken's talent and because of his vast experience, he could just nail those things. So when I took it over to Taiwan, language barrier be gone, everything. It's just like they knew exactly what to do, and so that's pretty cool.
Yep. Yes, Daryl.
I actually wanted to talk a little bit about the storyboard process, or actually coming onto this film. It's been really fun listening to Deanna talk about the voices, and the music to me is just so much the film, but none of that existed when we first started boarding. And in my memory, this is my first day. It might not be, but I remember seeing some of the animation tests, and Lampy specifically, and Jerry saying, "This is Lampy. He's a dim bulb." And I went, "Oh, I got it." Yeah, and that was it. And there was no voice, but when the voice came, that was Lampy. It was just the way I felt about him, and it was such a short way of talking about things. But the thing that was amazing was that they weren't cartoon characters. They were real, and I think we talked about this. Mm-hmm. This is a real situation. These are real characters, and it's real high stakes for them. Okay, that's fun. That's fun. It's not a cartoon, and I never ever thought of it as being anything other than real characters that were in this jeopardy and had this goal. So,
and you have a character like the lamp who thinks he's really bright, but he's a little dim. There's something relatable and kind of you can
and
be
it was
empathetic for that character.
With that.
And like with Blanky, it's for a kid, it's a security blanket. Of course, there was no kid in the original film. We added that, but as soon as you thought of the blanket being cuddled by a child, it's the security blanket. And without the child, it becomes the insecurity blanket. Everything is about being insecure and needing the cuddling. And,
You should have told me that back then. I would have done something different. Yeah.
And the vacuum, whose job is to hold everything inside.
Right.
That's manufactured to do that. And
so this is the thing that was so great, was just how compact the descriptions were. Oh, vacuum cleaner, holding it in, got it.
Mm-hmm.
And this character, and it was all really fast. There was very little time wasted.
Yep. Speaking of some of the boards, and I'm going to take it out to questions, but I just thought I'd do a couple things real quick. Is one showing the recent scanning of the storyboards. They were just, by the way, in a box. That's like 80% of the film there, and we usually would draw them smaller than that, and those were blow-ups of that, and we didn't get any more finished. So I put it on a Caesar scanner, which Tina had recommended to me, and it had a foot pedal and auto correction of tilt, so I could go through and do those. So Daryl, this is one of your boards of the flower scene, and the sad toaster looking back at the wilted flower.
This is how fast we were working. Some of the drawings are like, oh, this is terrible.
That's one of mine. You know, so I wouldn't, you know, none of us worked to make them finished. It was what's quickly indicating what the attitude was in the scene, what the relationship were. So these were some of my roughs for the movie, and they didn't even make it past pencil line.
These just lay flat, or do you have to like put glass over them to get them to lay down? It's like a down shooter, right?
You can just lay flat on the table, and yeah, it just auto corrects.
Okay.
If you have anything particular.
Oh, it'll auto correct.
It'll auto correct tilt, yeah, and auto crop at the edge. But these, and Daryl, again, these are some of yours, I think, for the waterfall scene. So you can see, like, every moment when I would sat with Daryl before it went through the rest of the team, it's like I saw the sequence happening here. And we could do any tweaks in this phase, and then those would be attached to the front of the animator's folder. So when they received the scene with a layout in it, it would have all of these poses attached to the front. And
you know,
it was just
lay the poses out.
By the way, that was another thing in talking to the actors about the attitude for the characters and that it was real. You know, radio says, why Houdini did this once. Why, if I remember right, he was out of the hospital in no time. And Lampy goes, well, that's encouraging, but I told him, mean it. Don't understand that it was sarcastic. Like really be optimistic. So he was like, he meant it when he said that's encouraging. Jumping further here, remember after this scene, Tom Wilhite was at a screening where, you know, I timed having the vacuum after everyone else has fallen. It's just frightening that there's that cable and everybody's gone. That he backs out of sight and is just gone there for a long time. And Tom used the term brave. He said you were very brave to let it take that long as a director. But you know, to me that was, I wanted to feel that before he committed to jump in. And then all your boards here, Daryl, it's just like animation poses. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah. I see it. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I remember this really well. It was a really fun sequence to do, and it was sort of like taking like every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And showing the image, all the activity that was going on, and giving the animators work stuff to work with. Yeah,
and the angles that you know we committed to the angles that it was from this point of view. It's one of my little roughs for that scene. So yeah, I just laid them out so you could see the progression of the sequence. But you know, this is how finished we got. That was just, and somebody was asking about what kind of pads we were on. It's just, we just cut them out. There's no pad. Like that. But you can really see the intention of the sequence laid out roughly.
I think working that fast on this thing was an advantage actually, because it demanded people not play with what was going on instead of just get directly to what the scene was about and illustrate it as graphically clearly as possible. You know, and the other thing was not trying to make fancy drawings. And you know, I worked on other things since then, where I'm trying to talk people out of spending all the time making drawings and instead of getting to the gist of the story is the hardest part of getting things, especially in boarding.
Yep. Way back when I was in my teens and mentoring with Eric Larson, he emphasized that with us. He looked at my early work, and I was trying to be really careful to be on model with everything, and he just said that's going to be a problem. And I said, why? It's like I worked so hard, and he said, don't fall in love with your drawings, because the main thing is the idea. It's better to go through 20 ideas and find the right idea, and don't have fallen in love with any of those drawings. After you find the right idea, then maybe you could do a pretty drawing. So, oh, and that was the taxi driver gopher, which was that didn't make it to the final cut.
Was dialogue always written at the bottom of the drawing, or did we use strips?
Not always. Not always. Yeah. Sometimes it's strips. Sometimes it just stayed on the page.
Yeah, the thing was missing was like losing the strip that went with the drawing.
Yeah, I would type things out, and then as we handed out the pages, sometimes people would treat it differently. Sometimes we would just refer to the typed page. Other times we'd write it on the panel itself. Other times pin it up underneath. Yeah. I've got a whole bunch of those wadded up in the box where the boards were just panels with dialogue. Yeah.
And this, was me pitching to Jerry, so I would write the dialogue on the bottom of the sketch.
I will jump on to, and then I'll turn it over to questions. It just will show. I promised to show you the deleted mole scene.
This is the yawning.
So this is one of a number of scenes. I haven't done this yet, but I have the Crazy Ernie scene when they actually go meet him at the junkyard, and they ask if he's Crazy Ernie, and he's Ernie, but he doesn't like being called crazy, so it becomes a problem. So part of this sequence with the mole is, as you remember it, so you're going to see stuff where you go, oh, I saw that in the movie, but the mole was an added thing, and just because the movie was getting too long and we had to finish, I had to go through and find like 1,000 places to micro edit, because Chuck would deal with me like, take out this sequence, and I'm like, no, I have to keep everything, but I'll make everything a little shorter. So the mole was one of the people, one of the characters that left. So here he's going through the thicket, and it's getting more dense, and they stop, and then Kirby decides he's going to really do the shag carpet treatment for this. So he gets up his gear and charges into it. Zoom, and he's crackling through that, and they're bracing, and then this is what you don't see in the movie. There's a little hole in the ground, and a mole looks out, and he gets vacuumed, and whoop goes and then he goes, funny tasting dirt. And then he keeps going. So now you hear the mole like, let me out, let me out. And then you continue, and they come out and crack through the thicket into the clearing. Crash, he's coughing up a storm. Hey, look everybody, a clearing. And so they start arguing with each other. Great, let's spread the blank out and have a picnic. But I'm all full of stickers. And well, my bag's full of thistles and sticks and God knows what else. And then whose idea was to come this way anyway? They proceed through that. Well, it was the lamps, I tell you. Oh yeah. So he jumps down and confronts him. They have their showdown there. Where are we anyway? Says Toaster. And why look. He does the Pee Wee Rees is at the plate and does the baseball hit, ping, ping, ping off of their chrome. It's a triple play. And then he backs up, and I'm so glad that we added the rock, because we have Lampy holding a rock, which was not in the storyboard. But Toaster says, knock it off, you guys. Let's all settle down and try to get some sleep. That means you too. Blanket says, but I'm not tired. And then he gets snoring. So Kirby's wondering what that is. It's coming from his bag, and then he freaks out. Benjamin. I see we crossed out my God and put Benjamin Franklin. There's something in my bag. And so he's freaking out, and the bag is making snoring sounds and stuff. So he's going one way or another, and says, "Get it out, get it out." So Toaster reaches up and zip. Ah, you see like, Toaster's shocked, Lampy's shocked, Radio's shocked, Blanky's shocked, and then you see the mole, and it comes just slowly waddling out of the bag, and they're just staring at it, and then there's that drawing, I think the Joe sketch that you turned into a t-shirt, close to that, and then he goes, big yawn, because he's a sleepy mole. And then they look, and then they go, oh, so then the mole is blink, blink, and then big yawn, and then everybody, so finally you just, hey, cut that out, because it's making everybody yawn. And by the way, Rebecca and I tried that with our cat, and you can make a cat yawn. So Toaster looks over, and it's zip pan over, and then you see a hole. It's like freshly dug, there's dirt around it, and then you're down in the hole, and from down in the hole, you see Toaster peek down from above. Aww. And that ended the sequence. So.
Wow.
I see there's questions lingering. What is going on?
Yes, we got a question from someone that calls himself the Grumpy Vacuum. So I thought we should answer those first to help him out. He's asking, what was the reason behind the casting decision for Kirby, and why is Kirby purple on the VHS cover?
Yeah.
I don't know why he's any color on the VHS cover, because I had nothing to do with how that was designed. But I loved Thurl Ravenscroft. I just thought he was an amazing voice actor, always, and it was a dream to get him. So,
if you notice, a lot of Disney VHS covers have purple characters. I think Belle is purple.
Yeah, Belle's
like
purple.
I think there's some marketing thing that says, "Oh, purple sells well for children."
Well, you know, I did get that impression, and it's, you know, again, there's a misunderstanding that a lot of people, and I think at Disney Home Video, they thought we were making a kids film. None of us, when we were making it, were making a kids film. We were all in our 20s, and we were starving to make something creative. We finally had the chance, and we were making a film that we liked as 20-somethings. And our veteran teachers at Disney had made it a point to say they never made a kids film in their career, that they were making movies, and sometimes it appealed to the kid in you as an adult, but they outright said we never made a kids film. And we were operating under that same premise. And Randy, I remember you and I were having discussions as we were getting into this about how you could legitimately make an emotionally deep character that looked cartoony.
Yeah.
Like, and our premise was you can. As long as the story and the acting takes you there, the design can be really simple. So it was on our minds to reach something that had rich acting with simple looking characters.
You know, on the first very early version of Roger Rabbit, that was kind of the goal, was to take Roger and turn him into a character that you really felt he's going through something. And
yeah.
Really doing something. The final movie doesn't really have much of that. It became much more wacky. But that was the original concept we were working on, Roger Rabbit too. And
right.
That probably came from our discussions.
Right. But yeah, the painting with the sort of noir painting of Toaster is what I painted back in 1987, before we had a screening at the Wadsworth Theater, and it was just a festival screening, and I painted that and put it in the Groundlings Improv Theater lobby to try to draw people to the event, and that's where I was going. I didn't go to like a daycare center or try to get something for kids. I went to an LA improv club, and put our poster up to try to get people that would come see you guys on stage, come see our film that we made together. And I think because of the name of the film, Seeming Kid, But you have to remember, the original novella came from a science fiction author
Right.
who was doing something that was an homage to that kind of film, and it was not directly a kid's project, even when he wrote the book. But I think that the home video approach was to overtly try to label it and market it as a kid's film. And I think the real pastel-y colors and everything were added because they thought that's what they were selling. And in the meantime, I had my noir thing, and they were like, they didn't like that. It was like, but that's what I made. So actually, we went out to Sundance Film Festival with the film back when I still had that poster. And we screened, and we were looking for distribution, theatrical distribution, and Disney had invested in the project and had the right to put it home video out. But they had no theatrical rights or merchandising rights. And so we were going there to try to get a distributor, get in theaters, and then we knew its second run would be Disney Channel and home video, and everybody would do well. It's like you get your first exposure out there in the theaters, and you follow through with home video. And a couple of things happened. One is that several of the judges at Sundance came and met with me, and it was quite a year. There were a lot of projects out there, but we were the only animated thing. And several of the judges took me aside and said, you know, in private, we've agreed that you have the best film here this year. But if we give it to a cartoon, people won't take the festival seriously. We're just getting started, and so just so you know, we really think you have the best film. So, but it's going to somebody else. So I had to go to my team and go, you know, they told us that we have the best film. We're not going to get an award, but that's kind of, I guess, thank you, I guess.
Nope.
We didn't boycott.
And then the other thing that happened was, despite that, Scurus Films stepped up to distribute. And at the time, they were an art house theater distribution thing, and they got it. They just said, this is a college and young adult film.
Right.
We're not even going to do a matinee for families or anything. This is just art house, night movie, date movie. So I went, thank you, you know. And then the Disney Channel moved up their airing, which made Scurus have to back out. So they said, we have to have longer to put in the theaters because they're going to try to show it on Disney Channel first, and that'll kill our theatrical. The lawyer I have now, still, I got associated with back in those days because he stepped up at Sundance and said, I'm an entertainment lawyer just starting out. I loved your film. Do you need anything? And I said, yes, I actually do. And I described the situation, and he said, well, I'll go see what I can do. And he came back and said, I don't get it because they're devaluing their own product to push it out of the theaters, and it would be more valuable to them in the home video market and cable if they let it do the theatrical run first, but they won't. They're not going to move. And you know, the only thing I could figure out, and I actually had a one-on-one conversation with Katzenberg at the time too, asking him to please cooperate, and he, you know, at the time was rather patronizing and just, hey, we don't want to get your way, kid. But I said, but you are. But you know, the thing that was possibly causing some of this stuff was, I'll bring this up on the screen, that we were getting reviews like this: Best Animated Film of the Year, LA Weekly. Sharper and wittier than anything you'd expect from Disney. The Brave Little Toaster is a real G-rated film that's one intended for general audiences, kids and adults alike. Kids will love the basic story and the fine animation. Adults will enjoy the sly wit. The Brave Little Toaster is crisp and crunchy and will leave you with a warm glow inside. This was from the Wadsworth Theater screening. Sometimes they do make cartoons the way they used to. The Brave Little Toaster was enthusiastically received by an audience that was happy to see a film that proved that sometimes they do make cartoons the way they used to, with genuinely funny characters and gags that grown-ups enjoy just as much as kids. So once it was pushed out of the theaters and became something people discovered on the Disney Channel, all those reviews that were competing reviews were suddenly their reviews. So it's like, that was a, hey, look at this Disney thing, it's cool. So I think it was a smart chess move. and but it was heartbreaking. And so I hope that answers, that, in a very long way, answers that question that came up.
That's why the vacuum is purple.
Got another question. I got a question from Dino Sencia from Youngstown, Ohio. First of all, they wanted to say happy birthday to Jack Nicholson, who's like 80-something.
Yep, Dino and Dino, Golden String Radio.
Yes, yes, and they want to know. Oh, they're asking Deanna Oliver, what was the Brave Little Toaster impact on your career, and what was your voice acting career like before and after Brave Little Toaster?
Wow. Well, before, where do I talk? Hello everybody.
Anyway.
Before Brave Little Toaster, I had done 0 voiceover work. That was my first one, so thank you.
Wow.
After that, I did a little. I did like, we were talking about Family Dog. I did a character on Family Dog, but Toaster's my voiceover. Dino, hi Dino. What happened is I went into writing cartoons rather than performing cartoons, and directing the Groundlings rather than who knows why, it just happened. I just enjoyed the writing of the cartoons. So I wrote on Animaniacs and, well, a little bit of Tiny Toons, all of Animaniacs, and then, what was after that? Well, recently, Curious George and a new show on PBS, Working Out Wombats, because I love, my approach to writing I learned from you, I think, which is I try, although you're right, animation has changed. I work from character. It's what you get from the Groundlings. What's a great character? You just don't stand and try to be funny and tell jokes. It all came from characters, from your background, from your life, reality. I love all that stuff, and that's how I direct as well. Anyway, I try to put that in my cartoon writing as well. And then in between, I wrote Casper with Sherry Stoner and My Favorite Martian, and a prequel to Roger Rabbit, but it got shelved. It never got made. That would have been fun. But anyway, same thing. I love the animation, but it became more on the production side, the writing side, rather than the acting side. And I don't know why. Maybe I just think I am the Toaster and that's it.
I remember so clearly a moment where we were recording together. When you say I'm the Toaster, it just takes me back to this moment where we were doing ensemble recording, but you were done for the day, and you were going to come back the next day. And so we said, thank you, Deanna. And I was sitting in with Thurl and Tim, I think Timothy E. Day and stuff, and I was going to continue to feed them lines. So you left the recording room, and like a half hour later, I looked, and you're still sitting through the glass in the engineer's booth with a cup of coffee at night. I mean, we're going into the evening. And so I came back and I said, Deanna, you can go. And you went, I know, but I kind of feel responsible for people. I think I'm turning into the Toaster. And I just thought that was great. I love that.
Yeah.
Here's a thing, and then we'll get to the next question. I thought this was kind of fun. This is the yin yang of Toaster. It gave me nightmares. I loved it. And this is something, and I think it comes out of partly that people thought that they were getting a kids video for their family, and they weren't. Pop Culture Shock rated it as scariest movie ever. I've seen it with listed with Psycho and other things as like scariest movie. So I'll take you through a little write-up that they did, and I'll just read it with you. A bitter, cynical air conditioner channeling Jack Nicholson berates the appliances for awaiting the messianic return of their master, who abandoned them in his old rundown cabin. And when they say he's just jealous because he's stuck in the wall, he bursts into a paranoid rage. I'm not an invalid. I was designed to stick in a wall. I love being stuck in this stupid wall. Since this is a happy children's film, what do you think happens next? A. The Toaster talks down the air conditioner from his rage spasm, and they all learn a valuable lesson about anger management. Or B. The air conditioner continues to rant and scream until the other appliances walk away in disgust. The answer is C, air conditioner explodes. He freaking explodes, showering the other appliances with sparks, which is probably the air conditioner equivalent of arterial spray. The only thing that could make this scene more traumatizing would be one last shot of the air conditioner lying in pieces and billowing smoke. Mom decides to pop back in. Is everything all right? I thought I heard the sound of innocence dying. Now the appliances are bouncing on a pogo stick. Oh, what hilarious hijinks. I'll just leave your impressionable mind alone with the influence of the television. So, that was rather fun. But on the flip side, recently, and I just dropped her a note last night, actually as I was prepping for this, probably at like 2 o'clock in the morning. She's in Germany, so I don't know if she got it yet. But Fatima wrote an article that came out last November, I believe it was, and she wrote a very long, well thought out thing, and her premise was The Brave Little Toaster, why it's one of the best 80s animated films. Brave Little Toaster is forever acclaimed by its cult following as one of the best, if not the best, animated films of the 1980s. And she has a very long article with a lot of pictures and analysis, and I just really appreciated that. And Carol, I think you sent that to me and also sent me her LinkedIn address. So I finally, as we were getting close to the reunion today, I sent her a link and said, maybe Fatima, maybe you're watching today. And if so, we thank you. So, other questions?
Yes, absolutely. Alright, so Zinga Graham wants to know, are there any life experiences that impacted the film? And that's for anyone in crew.
Well, I certainly from a lot of people that have written to us, Rebecca and I have sometimes huddled over fan mail that's come in where they have talked about really meaningful impacts on their lives. We got, everything from somebody saying, my parents got divorced, but watching the film sort of took me through the swamp of that experience, and I felt like I could get to the other side. There was somebody that wrote about being for a while, their family being in a homeless shelter, and they would occasionally watch the film to get their spirits up, and thankfully they got back on their feet. Some other people that just found a real connection with certain characters, like somebody that said vacuum and the way he held things inside had a breakdown, but then was able to finally find peace, was meaningful to them in a significant way. And we had even some people that contributed fan art tonight. There was one who talked about feeling rather suicidal and having the character, the story of the characters and how they had finally faced adversity and hung together was very therapeutic. And so there's a lot of that. And somebody like Roland Jaffe, who directed The Mission in Killing Fields, he told me back in the day that he asked me to come do some story work with him for a while, and he said, you and your team did something I didn't think was possible. I as an adult filmmaker, I shed a tear over a cartoon appliance. And I think a couple people have mentioned, Steve, a scene that you worked on where the air conditioner is finally repaired. Because, in his whole first breakdown, it's on the one hand, he's feeling like cool and above everyone else, but also left out. And says, I couldn't help it if the master was too short to reach my dials. And I think a part of this is just the rage of never being included in the fun. And of course, we have the years have passed. The kid is tall enough to reach the dials and repairs it. And I remember we talked about that scene, and I explained after the first draft where it was a little more direct. I said, well, this is really like Freon tears of it being repaired. Like, the last thing it knew, it went unconscious with the, being separated and feeling forever not part of the group. And now he's like personally repaired by the master who's gotten big enough to reach in and repair everything and get him working again. And as he's cool and the master's grooving on that, he's like feels the wind, and it's just this nice thing that as he walks away, you see the air conditioner get the little Freon tears in its eyes, and it's like, wow, he cared, So you have somebody like a filmmaker like that say it touched him, So
yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Well, just a quick real life experience. When my son deployed to Afghanistan, his unit, the Tomahawks, anyway, the soldiers brought me toasters to sign. And if they didn't have a toaster, they said, sign my lighter. Sign anything. And it was just the sweetest thing. They wanted to take a, now I'm going to cry, but, well, because of it.
Yeah.
So just to think that the soldiers wanted it, because this is the movie I grew up on. You got to sign my toaster. I'm going to take it to the war. And I thought, so toaster went to war.
Right.
Anyway, that's real life.
Yeah.
It's the sequel.
That was real life.
Well, you know, David was talking earlier about how the appliances, there's sort of this maturity that happened, that he felt by the end of the thing, and I've told you this before. When we got, it was like a parallel to the production as far as, we were all that Taiwan group together, really, working crazy hours, but it was this sort of team, or really became family, that we were there together.
Yeah.
And you got to that last scene, and we were working on it chronologically, so the end scenes were done last.
Yeah.
And there's that last scene where they're in the back of the car, and they're like, "We did good, didn't we?" And it's like, "Yeah, we did good." And I remember thinking, "Yeah, that's us."
Yeah. Well, Rebecca has mentioned that before.
Every now and then I'll go, we did good, right? We did good.
Yeah. Well, and I saw somebody that did a review, a rather raucous review of our film, but they seemed to get what we were up to, and they actually said, and I thought this was accurate, they said this film might as well be a story about the filmmakers. It was like the brave little team that went through all these trials and tribulations to get to the end, and they finally made it, So I thought they're saying it was kind of autobiographical on our part. It was pretty accurate.
I have a great segue after what you just said. So Ellen Woodbury from Colorado has a question for the entire crew.
Okay.
So everyone had to think and work outside of the box for this project. Did that experience influence the rest of your career in animation? Tell us about it.
I would say immediately for me, yes, and then a lot of people join in. The clip notes are, I felt so in love with working with Deanna and Tim and John and Phil and everybody from the Groundlings Improv Theater, and did not feel like that improv ability was sort of loose cannon territory where it was like not controllable or you couldn't offer it. I felt like it was contributed greatly to the depth of characters and the instinct in the moment to bring something alive. So the very next thing that I did was to direct Robin Williams in Back to Neverland. And I remember that was before he was in Aladdin. He was in our short film. And remember John Musker and Ron Clements talking to Rebecca, who was on the story team with them for Aladdin. And they said, "Oh, what is it like for Jerry to work with him? Is he a loose cannon?" And she said, "No, they get along great. You should talk to him about it." So I just felt like working with all of you with your experience, I saw it as an immediate plus. Your improv abilities on top of having what's written on the page. You're also an ensemble performance, and you bring new dimensions to it because you have the improv ability on top of that. And that doesn't mean you're always trying to throw lines out.
Right.
It means you're adding connective tissue. Sometimes you're throwing in new things, or sometimes we do shape the scene beyond where it started on the page. So just taking that immediately into the Robin Williams area, and that was kind of meant a lot to me because we had to fight to use him because they were resisting having him get near Disney Animation because they described him as a crotch-grabbing adult comic with substance abuse problems. So my argument was Jiminy Cricket in Pinocchio was voiced by, Ukulele Ike, Cliff Edwards. Ukulele Ike was his stage name, and he worked dirty. You could go buy dirty records stuff of Ukulele Ike when Pinocchio was out in the theaters, and he died an alcoholic. But Walt saw the charm that he had a gift, and he's an amazing Jiminy Cricket. So my argument to them when they were saying, no, not the adult comic with substance abuse problems. I was like, well, you know, it worked for Walt.
Yeah.
And so they begrudgingly sort of skidded towards that and said, well, it's a short, and if it fails, at least we didn't waste much. And at least it's in the parks. It's not part of our canon of Disney animation, so it keeps us okay with the Bible Belt. But then people fell in love with Robin, and immediately he was welcomed in, and he was in Aladdin, and a whole bunch of other stuff happened. So I felt like the spirit of adventure and trying things in Toaster directly fed into that, and it was another like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna cast who and do what? And then it, like the dominoes that fell from that. I mean, how many billions has Disney made from Aladdin? It's like
exactly.
So it was kind of a good thing.
Well, I just want to say hi, Ellen. We shared.
Oh yes,
Ellen.
that's our Ellen, right?
Ellen Woodbury. We
Ellen
shared
Woodbury.
on Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin, and worked on Lion King together.
You know, it's interesting the influence of Toaster later in my career, and maybe Kirk, you could speak up to this too, is when we were working on Beauty and the Beast, the taking the appliances function as a metaphor for their personality was certainly something that then was adapted into the object characters in Beauty and the Beast. We have, you know, Cogsworth looked very tightly wound, and you know, Lumiere was literally flamboyant. Those sort of things, you know, were really started and born with this film, and worked so well that those things then could be, you know, kind of a riffing point for later films. And so that was kind of a neat thing. And since we had both worked on Toaster, when we started talking about those object characters, it was kind of the first place we went was, okay, well, you know, Mrs. Potts is warm, and, you know, butts to pour out for everyone kind of things. And you get those personality traits that work with the metaphor really nicely.
Toaster's ancestors.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Well, I think it was really important to my career because I met Joe Ranft, and then, as I'm sure most people know, he went on to be the head of story at Pixar, and I think he put in a good word with John Lasseter for me to work. I got to work on Toy Story, and I don't think it would have happened without Joe. And it was really great to be able to work with him on both those films.
Yep. Yeah,
I mean, your film and John's film.
Yep.
Didn't Joe design the Casper? The movie Casper. I think Joe Ranft designed the.
I'm not sure about that.
Sure.
I was, but
sure.
I was at, and this is true. It sounds like a joke, but I was a ghostwriter on Casper for Steven. But I don't know.
I think Joe did the animated
design.
Yeah,
Okay.
designed Casper and the
Cool.
Fatso, Stinky.
Oh, good. Could be.
Ghostly Trio. Sorry.
Yeah. Kirk had some.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit to what Brian said. Me and Kevin Lehman and Steve Moore, this was one of our first, if not the first, job that we had graduating Cal Arts, and it was hugely impactful, I think, on all of our future careers. You know, both me, Kevin, and Steve all went on to become directors ourselves, and I think all of us credit you, Jerry, so much with being our first role model for what is a director and what does a director do, and what you modeled so well for us was how inclusive you were. You had a vision for the movie. You were very protective of that vision, yet you allowed your team to flourish. You welcomed collaboration and welcomed people building on the foundation that you had created. And I never forgot that, and I took that with me as you know, my career progressed, and you know, have always looked back on that experience as it's like if the other thing that you modeled for me particularly well was a calm and quiet determination that was unflagging in the face of angry executives. And that was
Yes.
a very valuable lesson for me.
Wait a minute, you had angry executives?
One or two.
The air conditioner scene made it real, yes. Well, that means so much to me. I truly appreciate that. I always felt like everybody in the team was so important to what we were doing all the time. And, I asked many of you to wear multiple hats. So instead of this thing of you belong there and you belong there, it was like, hey, can you do 2 things? Can you do 3 things? Can you do 4 things? It's like,
Chuck even did effects animation.
Chuck did effects animation and extra voices too.
Yeah.
But that was valuable. I always have felt
I
like
never got any residuals.
That's right.
Yeah, where was SAG with all that? What's going on with that?
Nor did I. Yes, I'm actually 6 months in the hole on the film, but so I feel your angst. But yeah, I always felt like people were so capable of contributing every day, and that it was just everything would get more creative and more exciting day by day when we'd be doing these brainstorm sessions. And it's like, well, here's the scene, and we weren't going to like zigzag into like another purpose for the scene, but like, hey, the purpose can be more clear, or there could be another layer of charm that's introduced into the scene beyond what was there. And Alex, I remember you really taking on a lot of the sort of the heartfelt moments with characters, and I remember like having conversations with you where you took it on yourself to try to make sure we always cared about the characters and why we're spending time with them and everything, and just each one of you had some special thing that you would bring to it. And so I would always feel like the more people feel their own fingerprint on a work of art, the more they can be proud of it as a team later when looking back.
That's one of the things I really enjoyed working. You would be at your K-Pro.
Yes.
And you would see through the glass window and you'd be generating text. But by the time Joe and I and Carol got a hold of it, it was alive, and we were able to start to find subtext and find moments that weren't in your original text. And you were open to that.
No, absolutely.
Which was refreshing.
Yes, well, a character lives. I'm even now doing things like dealing with artificial intelligent conversational characters and things. I go to them, and a lot of those projects start with them thinking the text is it. Like AI is text to speech. And I would go, what is the character doing when there's no text? When you're talking and there's 3 characters just listening to you. Who are the 3? Are they interested in what you're saying, or bored, or are they nervous about what you're saying, or excited about? There's all this stuff that's ignored just in service of only what's being said. And so the behavior around what's being said is where a lot of a character comes alive. And so starting that, like seeding those scenes, I was fully expecting you to play in that arena.
I had the great opportunity of studying with Alexander McKendrick at Cal Hines, and he would spend a whole lecture talking about the pre-verbal language of cinema. And
yes.
So much of it is lost these days.
And things where there isn't dialogue, or where dialogue and action tell you 2 layers, where it gives you dialogue and gives you rich or counterpoint. The character could be telling you, "Oh, I'm perfectly fine. Why did you ask?" But you see them doing a nervous fidget, and you realize, oh, they're lying to me. They're actually not fine. So the dialogue and the contradictory behavior together tell you more than just the dialogue could, or just the action could.
It's like Blanky goes, "I'm not scared."
Oh, well, actually that was a beautiful moment. That's a great example. They're sinking in the swamp, and Timothy, E. Day, in doing the voice, was trying to get a handle on this. There was a scary thing, but he's saying, "I'm not scared." And I explained to him, the reason you're saying that is you actually are terrified. But poor Toaster, like, she's desperate for you to be saved, and is telling you untie yourself and everything. And the reason you say that is because you don't want her to feel bad when you die, you know. So he was saying, I'm not scared, meaning I'm helping you feel better as we die, you know. So it was